Hello and welcome to News Round, a recap of stories that made headlines during the week. I'm Olumide Macaulay. Now the headlines. Governor of Borno State, Babagana Zulum, laments activities of Boko Haram terrorists, seeks federal government assistance for soldiers fighting insurgency. The National Security Advisor, Nuhu Ribadu, visits Operation Safe Haven, assures Plateau residents of federal government's commitment to security. Labour Party holds National Executive Council meeting in Abuja. Former presidential candidate of the party in 2023, Mr. Peter Obi, slams the leadership of the country, says Nigeria is collapsing. Plus, China announces 84% tariff on U.S. imports after Trump's imposition of 104% tariffs on Chinese goods entering the United States. That's News Round in View. From the northeast, where the Borno State Governor, Babagana Zulum, says resurgence of Boko Haram is making it difficult for agriculture to thrive in the state. The governor, who was speaking at expanded Security Council meeting held at the chambers of the government house in Maiduguri, the state capital, says the recent renewed attacks are an indication the government is losing ground, a situation which begs the question, why is this happening again?
It is the second expanded Security Council meeting in 2025 with all traditional rulers of the state and heads of security agencies. These members of the council are the first to arrive. The governor arrives later and is received by the deputy governor, the Shehu of Borno, and other officials. After the formal introductions by the secretary to the state government, the Shehu gives the opening remarks.
It's a little by now, because this is started as far back as 2009, a little by now, everybody is supposed to go back to their respective local governments and pick up with their work. But up to now, 3 local governments were no-go area, and I've said this on so many occasions.
Professor Babagana Zulum laments the rising attacks by insurgents in parts of the state, especially the resettled communities.
In recent times, Borno State in general has been witnessing sporadic attacks within the general area of the state. Many military formations were dislodged, especially in Wulgo, in Sabongari, in Wajiroko, amongst others.
The meeting then shifts into a closed-door session. The Commissioner of Information and Internal Security afterwards briefs journalists.
Council called on the federal government of Nigeria and armed forces of Nigeria to continue to support the ongoing efforts in counterinsurgency operations.
In the meantime, the Commissioner states that strategic and technical measures have been adopted to curtail the spate of attacks, while more robust decisions will be explored to permanently halt the attacks on innocent citizens.
From Borno to Plateau State, this time, the National Security Advisor, Nuhu Ribadu, has expressed the federal government's determination to find a solution to the incessant attacks and killings in Plateau State. Speaking at Operation Safe Haven headquarters in Jos during an operational visit in the aftermath of the attacks on some communities of Boko's local government area, the NSA says enough of the carnage in Plateau.
Boko's local government area of Plateau State is mourning the death of 50 persons killed within a week in attacks that ravaged over 5 communities, with over 300 houses burned by suspected herdsmen. One of the early callers to the state is the National Security Advisor, who visited troops of Operation Safe Haven at its headquarters in Jos, where he highlighted the importance of peaceful coexistence amongst Nigerians.
All of us will have to come together. Everybody do have a role to play, particularly communities, those who have been living together for years and decades. I think time has come for us to say enough is enough. Our security forces are doing well, but our communities will do even better.
To ascertain the level of destruction in the affected communities, the Secretary to the Government of Plateau State leads a delegation to commiserate with affected victims, just as he provides some relief materials to displaced persons and those who lost some property due to the attack.
Unknown gunmen, as we call them in the country, but I call them terrorists, came riding on over 20 bikes, and they started shooting sporadically all over the town and killed over 40 people in different communities. The entire landscape around that area when we went, you saw the pictures will show. That's why we made an effort to go so that the whole country, the whole world can see what happened. These people are living in abject poverty. Somebody has come in, their livelihood has been taken away from them. For God's sake, how do they recover?
On his part, the district head of Manguna community wants government to provide more security personnel in the affected communities in order to curb rural-urban migration.
Because of what has happened, there is trauma, there is intimidation, and nobody is prepared to stay in the village. We're happy by what we have seen today.
A resident of Hariti community explains how over 30 persons were given a mass burial at a grave within the community, even as the search for the missing is still ongoing.
We discovered that about 35 corpses that were buried now. And also 18 people were injured. Some are in the hospital. We don't know actually, because we take some to Cottage Hospital, Bokos. Some are in Jos. So actually we don't know exactly hospital they take the other people. And up to now we have not seen other people.
As the people of Bokos grieve over the attacks, over 700 persons are said to have been displaced from their ancestral homes and will require government's intervention and reinforcement of security personnel to enable the people return to their homes in order to continue their farming activities.
Still on security matters, the National Security Advisor, Mr. Nuhu Ribadu, is asking Nigerians to stop paying ransom to kidnappers and bandits in order to stem the tide of insecurity. Speaking in Abuja shortly after receiving 60 kidnapped victims who were rescued by army troops in conjunction with other agencies, he says the payment of ransom is fueling banditry and kidnapping.
It is a happy moment for these kidnapped victims as they file out to be received by the National Security Advisor in Abuja. The National Coordinator of the National Counter-Terrorism Center presents the victims to the National Security Advisor.
On rescue, we have been able to give them some medical attention, and we're here to present them today to you for subsequent handover to their family, reuniting them with their family, sir.
Without mincing words, the National Security Advisor warns against the payment of ransom, just as the Minister of Defense applauds security agencies for sustaining the fight against insecurity.
I want to also use the opportunity to talk to our people. Please stop giving money to these people. It's one of the worst things that is happening. It's the most difficult thing we have faced. Many of these people, as you see them, their families have given money to these people, but it did not lead to their own release. No, it is we, the security forces, that have got them out. It's not the money that they are giving. These people, the more you give, the more you are compounding the problems for us. We have never given anybody a dime. We don't. And we don't want people to do so. Please stop it.
Again,
Thank you, Mr. President, for giving us the ability and the support to do this work. And by the special grace of God, the coordination of the National Security Advisor and the services, I'm sure we will see end to insecurity in this country.
The victims are happy to be free as they share their experiences.
We appreciate government for their effort in bringing us out from that bondage. We were taken to the bush. In fact, we were brutally beaten. But at the end of it today, that we were rescued after 90 days of this problem. We want to show our appreciation to the government of Nigeria and to the National Security Advisor for doing everything possible to rescue us from this predicament.
The rescued victims, who were kidnapped mostly from Lere, Zangon Kataf and Kagarko local government areas of Kaduna State and FCT Abuja, are made up of 35 males and 25 females, including a deputy director from the National Assembly Commission and a Shaya Koka, a brother to Reverend Father Matthew Koka. They were kidnapped from their houses and farms.
Thank God for the rescue of those kidnapped victims. And now away from security issues to politics. The presidential candidate of the Labour Party in the 2023 election, Mr. Peter Obi, says Nigeria is a failed state as its security and economy has been destroyed. Mr. Peter Obi made the comment at the party's National Executive Committee meeting held in Abuja, where he decries the level of killings and the dire economic realities facing ordinary Nigerians.
Following the Supreme Court judgment on the 4th of April 2025, the Ninadi Usman-led caretaker committee of the Labour Party is holding its National Executive Committee meeting in Abuja. Present here is the 2023 presidential and vice presidential candidates of the party, the governor of Abia State, Alex Oti, members of the National Assembly, former governorship candidates of the party, and other members of the executive committee.
Distinguished Senator
Mr. Peter Obi and Dati Baba Ahmed comment on the state of the nation.
Nigeria is collapsing. Anybody can say anything. The numbers are clear. The indices are clear. Very clear. More and more people are poorer. If you want, go to your village. The people who are begging now are no longer, there are even people who are that are no longer people who used to feed and are begging.
There used to be a party, a mammoth, that said it was going to misrule Nigeria for 60 years. Today, that party is not only a department, it is a detachment of another party. What happened, of course, they switched off IREV, they changed the meaning of English language, and they bent our constitution. And I remain by what I said. This serving government remains questionably constitutional.
The caretaker committee chairman is extending an olive branch to all party members following the judgment of the Supreme Court.
I therefore call on all party members, whether aggrieved by the decision of the Supreme Court or not, to set aside their grievances and ambitions and come join us to build a party that will stand with the ordinary Nigerian and a party that would ensure that the gains of democracy are available to every Nigerian.
In his remarks, the governor of Abia State says he exhausted all avenues to resolve the issues in the party before the Supreme Court judgment.
I had sat with Mr. Bure last year, and I asked him, I said, what do you really want? And he said he didn't want anything. I said, okay, I can speak to my leaders, and you can become a BOT chairman. I offered that with their approval. But I also gave him some pieces of advice. I said, if I were you, I wouldn't want to lead people who wouldn't want me to lead them.
The NEC then resolves to take the certified true copy of the Supreme Court judgments to the headquarters of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC. As the leadership of the party and members arrive at the commission's headquarters, there is an initial resistance, but they are eventually allowed in. Mr. Oti explains to the senior management of the electoral body why they have come, and INEC immediately gave their response.
It's instructive to note that in your website, you have Barrister Julius Abure, the chairman of the party, but you do have a clock here that says court order. Since there is another court order, we call on you to remove his name and replace with distinguished Senator Esther Menadi Osman.
The chairman of the commission is done here is away on official duty. And as soon as we leave here, we will communicate with him. We will meet and take decisions on this matter.
It is expected that in the coming days, INEC will reveal who it recognizes as the chairman of the party. Dili Omoyeni, Channels Television News.
You're watching News Round on Channels Television. Coming up, the AFDB and the federal government collaborate on first agro-industrial processing zone. Please stay with us. The federal government has launched the Phase 1 of the Special Agro-Industrial Processing Zone program backed by a $538 million investment from the AFDB, the African Development Bank, the Islamic Development Bank, and the International Fund for Agriculture Development. At the launch of the program in Kaduna, the Vice President, Kashim Shettima, says the initiative is part of President Tinubu's agenda to industrialize the agriculture sector, boost food security, and create jobs.
Vice President Kashim Shettima, led by Governor Obasani, among other dignitaries, including former Vice President Namadi Sambo, arrived at Kintakwa's community in Kaduna State for the groundbreaking ceremony of the Agro-Industrial Hub and Agricultural Transformation Center under the Special Agro-Industrial Processing Zone. Kaduna State is the first among the 8 states selected for the first phase of the initiative.
The SAPZ project is a bold and deliberate strategy to move agriculture in Kaduna State from a way of life to a business. It reflects the current administration's deep belief that agriculture must become the engine of industrial growth and rural prosperity and inclusive development.
The SAPZ is a dedicated agro-processing area within major food production clusters equipped with desirable, ultra-modern infrastructure to attract private sector investments into modern agricultural processing of locally produced crops, livestock, and other related agribusiness activities.
The Special Agro-Industrial Processing Zone initiative is supported by the African Development Bank, and the president of the bank gives more details about the project.
For this first phase, the African Development Bank is providing $200 million, with $50 million from the Africa Growing Together Fund from China, with co-financing of $100 million from the International Fund for Agricultural Development, $150 million from the Islamic Development Bank, and $60 million from the Green Climate Funds. It's expected that $1 billion of investment will be mobilized in these zones and create thousands of jobs. We have been able, I would like to say, Mr. Vice President, to mobilize $2.2 billion of investment interest to support the second phase across Nigeria.
For Governor Obasani, his administration is determined to cash in on the agricultural potential of Kaduna State.
Today, with the launch of Special Agro-Industrial Processing Zone SAPZ, we are taking the next critical step, moving agriculture beyond primary production into processing, value addition, and industrialization, enabling Kaduna agricultural products to compete on the regional and global scale.
The federal government has committed over $18 million to the SAPZ initiative, and Vice President Kashim Shettima reaffirms the commitment of President Bola Tinubu's government to the program.
This isn't just about bricks and mortar. It is about people. It is about the resilience of our farmers, the ingenuity of our processors and entrepreneurs, and the commitment of our government and development partners to build a future that works for everyone. What we are breaking today is not just ground. It is the foundation for a new agro-industrial processing ecosystem that will serve generations to come.
The Vice President goes on to perform the groundbreaking exercise alongside Governor Ubasani and other guests.
To the glory of God and for service to humanity.
In the days ahead, more states are expected to witness similar groundbreaking events as the federal government and the African Development Bank also look forward to commence the Phase 2 of the Special Agro-Industrial Processing Zones project. From Dakin-Takwas community in Kaduna State, Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
Now, the Minister of Finance, Mr. Wale Adun, has given his assurance that the NEC will assess the likely impact of the 14% tariff on goods exported from Nigeria to the U.S. and then make recommendations to cushion its impact on the nation's economy. Mr. Adun, who was speaking at an event organized by the Ministry of Finance Incorporated, says that while the adverse effect on Nigeria will be through oil price plunge, the government is intensifying efforts to ramp up oil production and boost non-oil revenue.
This meeting, organized by the Ministry of Finance Incorporated, is bringing together government officials, development institutions, and heads of government, departments, and agencies towards ensuring accountability and transparency through corporate governance. Over the years, corporate governance in Nigeria has evolved using a combination of statutory frameworks and regulatory codes aimed at enhancing corporate accountability and performance. Government officials plan to now take this vision seriously.
There has not been a consistent effort to actually institutionalize performance-based corporate governance in the public sector. And today, this is a very important event. It's very significant because it is laying the foundation for good corporate governance. MOFI is the friendly partner, guide, and host, and assistant in this journey.
We need to ensure that these institutions that are owned by states or are linked to the states have the capacity, have the credibility, and have the ability to go out there and mobilize capital, both domestic and foreign.
At a time when nations across the globe are contending with economic uncertainties, financial vulnerabilities, and the demand for structural reform, the discourse on the corporate governance assumes greater relevance.
For us in the Nigerian power sector, good corporate governance is not a luxury. It's not a nice to have. It is a necessity for national competitiveness, for financial sustainability, and for inclusiveness in our service delivery strategy. And we expect that this forum will serve as a catalyst, not just for dialogue, but for action.
The Minister of Finance then comments on the 14% tariff hike on goods imported from Nigeria to the United States and how the government intends to tackle them.
For the economic management team of Mr. President and for indeed his whole government, we are going back to the drawing board to look at the scenarios that may play out if the if the current tariff situation is prolonged. For Nigeria, in terms of exports, it's not too bad because oil, minerals are excluded by America.
After the speeches, the Corporate Governance Code is then launched. The code is to serve as a guide towards ensuring accountability and transparency in all government transactions.
Be cool, says U.S. President Donald Trump. Everything will work out well. The USA will be bigger and better than ever before. That's his assurance to the American people. Hours after China announced 84% tariff on U.S. imports, taking effect on Thursday, following President Donald Trump's 104% tariff on Chinese goods entering the United States. The Chinese tariff is an increase from 34% it already imposed on American imports. China is adding 12 American companies to an export control list, a catalog of items and products that may require an export license to leave a country. China has already filed a complaint to the World Trade Organization where it says the U.S. is violating international trade laws. And that's it on News Round, the recap of stories that made headlines during the week. Thank you for watching. I'm Olumide Macaulay.